When we hear the word plagiarism, we usually think of it as some simple mistake, right? Something students get a slap on the wrist for in school. But in the world of academic and scientific research, it is so much more than that. It can be a career-ending offense with consequences that ripple out and affect the entire community. And trust me, the stakes are way higher than you might think.
So let's just cut to the chase. Could a simple copy-paste mistake actually end a promising career? The short answer? Yes, absolutely. The line between building on someone else's work and just straight up stealing it can sometimes feel a little blurry. But crossing that line, whether you meant to or not, can unravel everything in an instant.
And look, this isn't some theoretical problem or a what-if scenario. This stuff has very real and very public consequences.
I mean, just take a look at these headlines from the last decade alone. They span different countries, different scientific fields, and the irony here is just staggering. In 2024, a Harvard researcher who literally studies honesty was accused of plagiarism. When an accusation like that goes public, it can be a professional point of no return.
So what's driving this? Well, a huge factor is the whole publish or perish culture in academia. The pressure is just immense, and it can tempt people to take shortcuts. But as we're about to see, sometimes the word shortcut doesn't even begin to cover it. Okay, let me show you a real-world example. So imagine an original scientific paper. You're looking at its abstract, that summary on the very first page. This little block of text represents months, maybe even years of someone's dedicated work.
Now look at this. This is the abstract from a different paper by completely different authors, and it is a complete word-for-word copy. This is about as shameless as academic fraud can get, and believe me, it happens. This pressure to publish has even spawned its own black market. This is a real email offering to sell authorship spots on scientific papers. It is a shocking look into just how far some people will go to cheat the system. But, plagiarism isn't always this obvious. A word-for-word copy is easy to spot. So let's dive into some of the more subtle violations that can trip up even researchers with the best of intentions. So what are the actual rules? Well, guidelines from institutions like Indiana University make it pretty clear. The whole foundation of academic integrity is giving credit where credit is due. And that goes way beyond just direct quotes. If you use someone else's idea or their theory or even just facts that they were the one to compile, you've got to cite it. It's all about acknowledging where that knowledge came from.
Okay, and this is where things can start to get a little tricky. We're going to get into concepts like proper paraphrasing and something called self-plagiarism. These are often misunderstood, but getting them wrong can still land you in some serious hot water.
A lot of people think paraphrasing just means you rearrange a sentence a bit or you pull up a thesaurus and swap out a few words for synonyms. Nope, that's not it. Real paraphrasing means you have to fully process an idea and then explain it using your own unique words in your own sentence structure. Anything less is really just plagiarism wearing a cheap disguise.
Now this next one surprises a lot of people. Self-plagiarism. I know what you're thinking. How can you possibly steal from yourself? Well, in the world of academic publishing, every single publication is expected to be a new, original contribution to our body of knowledge. So if you reuse your own past work without being upfront about it, that's seen as a form of misrepresentation.
But there's a really key distinction to make here. Let's say you're re-explaining a standard methodology you've used before. That's usually okay as long as you rewrite it. But what crosses the line into fraud is recycling old data or old results and presenting them as if they're brand new. That's a huge breach of trust because it falsely inflates the evidence for a scientific claim.
Okay, so we've covered text, we've covered ideas, but what about images? This is another one of those common pitfalls where the rules can get even more complex. So picture this. You're writing your paper and you find the absolute perfect diagram in another article that illustrates your point. So you copy it, you paste it in, and you add a nice little citation right below it. You're in the clear, right?
The answer is a big, resounding no. And this is a critical point that a lot of researchers, even experienced ones, totally miss. Simply citing the source for a figure is not enough, and it all comes down to copyright law.
Here's the thing you have to remember. It's usually the publisher, not the author, who holds the copyright to the figures in an article. So the correct way to do it is to contact the publisher, there's often a link right on the article's webpage, and get formal, written permission to reproduce that figure. Only then can you use it.
So what does that look like in practice? Well, when you get that permission, your citation has to include a specific line that acknowledges it, just like this example. This is how you show everyone that you've done your due diligence and you're using the material both legally and ethically.
So all of these rules, all these steps, they really point to something much bigger than just avoiding punishment. It's about the very foundation of what research is supposed to be.
Think of science as one massive conversation that's been happening for centuries. Proper citation is how we show respect for that conversation. It's how we acknowledge the people who spoke before us, and it's how we make sure that our own contribution to that dialogue is an honest one.
And really, that's the question I want to leave you with. In a world where we can access any piece of information in an instant, it becomes more important than ever to respect and acknowledge where our ideas come from. Because without that foundation of integrity, knowledge itself, well, it starts to lose its meaning.